Hello everyone, Agnes here. I have another interview for you, and today I'm very excited because Hedley and I are in the same country. We're both in Australia. Hello, Hedley.
Hi, Agnes. So good to have you in the country.
Oh, it's so good to be back, and it's summer and it's wonderfully warm, and the Australian
even though you've got your cardigan on.
Yeah, because I'm in the cold part of New South Wales. You're in the warm part. We're both.
The weather has been up and down though. We've had some cold weather up here as well, so it's a bit all over the place.
It is. It's a mixed bag of nuts.
It is a mixed bag. Yeah.
So you are here today to share an amazing success story on the topic of manifesting a dream home. So
yes.
Can you go back in time as to when you didn't have this, where you were living, and then what you wanted and what you did to get to where you are?
Okay. Well, I was studying law of assumption probably 6 months first. So prior to this, I was a writer. So I'd written a number of books. And I think one of the reasons that law of assumption appealed to me so much is because it is narrative based, and it appealed to the storyteller within me. And I realized that I had been telling not so great stories and writing about not so great stories. And that I realized that so much of my reality that I was experiencing at that time when I came into law of assumption was a result of the stories that I had been telling in all areas of my life. And so about 6 months into it, I realized that one of the stories that was really important to me is my home story. And because one of the things I was doing was looking at each area of my life and kind of becoming aware of the stories that I'd been telling and looking at my reality and what that was reflecting back, and going, oh, wow, okay, I've been telling some pretty low quality stories. And so one of those stories was my home story. And so the reality that I was in at that time was that I was renting a granny flat on the North Coast. So I had moved. So I was in a beautiful place. But I was renting a converted garage, and it was somebody else's things, and it was great for what it was. I'm very grateful for that time, and I met a lot of amazing people while I was living there and made some great friends. But I was just aware that if you can have anything that you want, and if anything is possible, would this be what I chose? And the answer was just no. No, because also one of the things that was really important to me was that I wanted a dog as well. And I couldn't have a dog there because I was renting. And also I wanted to have people come and stay, like family and friends. And I couldn't do that because it was only a 1-bedroom. And it had ants and it had insects, because we have a lot of insects up here in Australia. So it was just not my place, none of my furniture, because I'd sold that. So I was just looking at that and going, okay, we can write another story here. So I, using the law of assumption and knowing about living from the end, I entered, it was actually a competition to win one of those dream homes. And it was a beautiful home on the Gold Coast. And it wasn't necessarily, no, it wasn't on the Gold Coast, northern New South Wales. I think it was just half an hour from where I was. And it was this beautiful beach house. And I thought, okay, that is a beautiful home. I would be very happy to live in that home. So every night for probably, I'd say 40, it sounds very biblical, for about 40 days and 40 nights. And it did actually work out to be that. I slept in this dream home. And because when you enter the competition, they have a video so you can explore the home, and you can I studied this home, studied it, even drove past it because it was half an hour. I walked around it. I got into this home. I stood up and looked at the home and imagined myself on the back. I did everything that I could possibly do to be in this home. And I did that, and I slept in that home for 40 nights. So every time I got into bed, I closed my eyes and I imagined I was in the bedroom, because I knew the bedroom back to front. And I sort of had envisioned the doona and the pillows, and I would slide down my bed and I would imagine that I was in that bed. It became so real that it just that was the home that I was sleeping in. I used all of my senses to get into that home. And then what happened after that was pretty magical. So I guess what was not magical was I did not win the home. I was a little bit devastated, I have to say. And so
Yeah.
I stopped sleeping in the home. I'm like, okay, well, that didn't work. But I had already set the story in motion, not realizing it. So then everything that kind of happened after that was without any effort on my part. And I had a rental property down in Sydney, and that just, it all just kind of, the way it all got sold and or everything got organized, it was just so fast. So I ended up within a month selling my home, and then 20 days later bought my dream home, which had a very similar layout to the dream home that I was living in. And there was a moment when I had moved into this place and I was standing on the balcony, and I had my hands on the balcony. I closed my eyes. I could hear the ocean, which is one of the visions that I'd had, because it was next to the ocean. And I was just like, I put my hand on the balcony when I moved in, and I could see the ocean, hear the ocean. And I just went, oh shit. Oh my God, I'm here. Now, I didn't win the house, but I'm in the house, and the house is now mine. And I've never lived in a house like this. This is like, it's 2 stories. It's hardwood floors. It's by the ocean. I have this, like, it's unbelievable. And
wow.
I have to become the version of myself that lives in the home like this, because there's so much maintenance, and it's actually, I'm like, oh wow, okay, I've got to step up now.
Yeah.
To this, and that's a whole other process in itself. So that's how the home came about. But it was magical, because I didn't force anything, I didn't organize anything, I didn't do anything, and it all just happened so easily.
So on a timeline, from the moment you decided you wanted to buy a house when you were renting to the time when you literally moved in, what was that?
5 months.
That's really quick, isn't it?
Yeah, fast. It's so fast, especially when I didn't know that I was going to sell. I was living up here, so it all just got organized without me even meeting the number of synchronicities and the things that happened. It was like I didn't do any of it. I just, like, my property manager, I just mentioned that I was thinking of selling. Oh, great. No, I'll sort all of that out. So she put me in touch, and and then the real estate agent was phenomenal, and he just, like, got it sold within a couple of weeks. And it just was seamless. Like, it was unbelievable. And it was so fast that I almost had to, in my physical body, catch up to what was happening, going, oh, whoa, this is happening. Like,
so quick. Hedley, where was your place in Sydney? Just out of curiosity.
In Bronte.
Okay.
Yeah.
For those watching, Bronte is the beach next to Bondi Beach, which everybody knows. So it's very close.
Very close to Bondi. Yeah.
And
And there was something that was really interesting in the selling part, that because I was using law of assumption throughout the whole process. And there was a week when it went on the market where it didn't sell. And Bronte, it's a very it's an in-demand kind of place. People want to live there. There's a lot of, it was at the top of the market, so there was a lot of demand for properties. But there was one week where no one showed up at the inspection.
Wow.
And the real estate agent wasn't getting any interest. And I was like, that doesn't make sense, because I know that it's a good property. I know it's in a great place. I know that people are buying. I know that, like, it doesn't make sense. So what is going on? And I had to ask myself, well, what are the assumptions that I have about selling?
Yes.
Which was really weird, because I'd never sold a property before. So I didn't have any negative assumptions about selling. So I'm like, all right, well, do I have any experience with selling? And then a memory popped up of when my family sold the family home, and I didn't want to leave the family home. And so I had associated, and I was young, I was about 8. So I had associated selling where I didn't want to sell. So selling was something I didn't want to do. And I picked that up. I revised that memory. I changed the story, rehearsed it so that my subconscious believed that that's what happened. And then boom, next showing, full of people, sold within the next week. Wow. It was like, it just sort of cleared the path. It cleared that block of the negative assumption that I had about selling.
Can I ask, with the revision, did you revise from an 8-year-old point of view or from the adult point of view? You revised?
So I was, I put myself in my 8-year-old body, and I worked it out first because I had to, it's sometimes, it's tricky to sometimes revise memories because you're like, well, hang on a second, I don't, like, so I had to kind of figure out, okay, what do I want? Like, what would make me want to sell the family home? Well, that would be if we were going to an even bigger home and it was closer to friends. And so I created a story that the reason we were selling as a family was so that we were moving into this other house and that it was a much better house and there was like a big yard and I could be near my friends. And so I sort of created this new narrative, and then I just went into my imagination and I kind of just worked with it until I got the memory that I was happy with. And then I just rehearsed that. But I rehearsed it from the perspective of the 8-year-old. So that was just how I did that. Yeah. So that was, and that felt great. Like, it felt really good. And I still think back now to that and I go, oh yeah, like it's a good memory.
Yeah. And what time well spent doing that.
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't take that long to revise. Yes, you got to do it until you feel like you've unhooked yourself emotionally from the old emotion.
It.
But
yes.
That's so wonderful. That's so wonderful.
So that really
what have
helped.
you got? You've got obviously a house on the beach and in a wonderful location and in an amazing country. What have you got? You've got the beach. Have you got more bedrooms? Have you got a study?
Yeah.
What have you got that you didn't have before?
This is what I mean. Like, I've never lived in a house other than my childhood house that I grew up in. I've never lived in a house like this, and I've certainly never like either rented or owned a house like this. Like, the last place I lived with an apartment, and I felt like I had apartment thinking. I felt like my consciousness was at the apartment level, and I knew that I didn't want to live in an apartment. So I had to go beyond that apartment consciousness. No, not that there's anything wrong with that, and I love that, but just for where I'm at in my life, I wanted more space. I'm tall, I'm 6'1". I wanted high ceilings so that when I walked in, there was space, and these are the highest ceilings I've ever seen in my life. Like, I can't actually get the cobwebs off the roof. There's 3 bedrooms, and there's a yard, and I have a dog, and I have a garden, and I can walk to the beach, and I have a garage. And one of the dreams that I wanted was to set up a Pilates studio for myself. So now I have like a Pilates reformer, which now I don't use because I'm walking the dog all the time. And so I have, it's phenomenal, and I'm so grateful. But I'm noticing that I now have to step into a new version of myself to hold, like, to be in this place. There's a new level of responsibility that I'm not used to. Like, there's a new level of bills that I have to pay. There's a new level, like, of maintenance that I have to show up for. So I'm kind of like, okay, great. This is very adult. Like, I'm having to step up into another level of responsibility. And that's been an interesting process as well, because I think in those smaller places, I haven't had to do as much. So I can just laze around a bit more. And now I'm having to sort of like, well, I can't actually like sit on the couch right now because there's just 1,000 things that I need to do, and I can sit on the couch later. But so that's been an interesting shift as well. That I've had to kind of change my thoughts
water
around
a garden. The garden.
I have to water the garden. I have a gardener.
Up there.
Yeah, no, it's full on. And the owners before had this beautiful, immaculate garden that I had every intention of maintaining, and it rains so much up here that the garden just went. And I just had to get a gardener in because I haven't been able to manage it on my own. And every week I have to mow the lawn, I have to do the weeding, I have, like, there's so much to do, and I have to remember to water it. It's there's a lot to having a bigger place, but I'm grateful for it, but it just requires stepping up in myself a bit more.
Yeah. Oh, that's so wonderful. So wonderful. And it really is such an amazing thing to think all you really did was spend 40 days or 40 nights focusing and being consistent. Okay, a lot of people say to me, I start things and then I forget to do it. So what did you do to remind you? Did you set an alarm to remind you every night to do it, or you just remembered?
Look, I can totally relate to that. And there are some things that I'm working on in my life where I'm not as disciplined. And I do forget, but for some reason, I think I was so determined. Also, I could feel the market was changing, and I couldn't waste time. And the market completely dropped after I sold. So I sold right at the top, and it was almost like a few weeks later, the bottom fell out.
Nice.
So I could feel that there was that I needed to move on this, and that I didn't have time to waste because of what was going on, and also the unsettled, like the anxiety that I felt that any minute my landlord could kind of just rip the carpet out from under me and kind of change the rules or raise the rent or say, you know, something else. I just felt like there was an urgency to it. So that was what kept me on track to just maintain that discipline and commitment, because I was so committed to changing this story and to finding a home and having a home and feeling at home and feeling that safety and security, because that was something that I felt like I had negative assumptions around of not feeling safe and not feeling secure. So that was getting reflected back in my reality. So I was determined to change those. And I just was very, very committed. Weirdly, for this particular manifestation, I was just incredibly disciplined and incredibly committed. And I guess having had this experience, because I use the law of assumption from beginning to end, like this is 100% a law of assumption manifestation, because we've all had things where we've manifested them, but we haven't done it really, like we're like, oh yeah, that was something that I wanted, or, you know, whereas this was a very conscious process from beginning to end. And I got to see the law of assumption in action consistently. Based on the work that I was doing, I was seeing it reflected back. So I can see how that commitment and discipline and consistency really does make a difference. And I know that there are some areas where I'm not showing that, where I could be more disciplined and committed. But yeah, for some reason, I just was with this one. And the results paid off. So
some things are just there's a stronger drive to do the work on certain topics at certain times. So that's so wonderful.
And there was one the only time where I didn't use law of assumption was when I was buying a place. And this is kind of interesting because I went from having sold my place, I went straight into searching for a house. I just straight into it. And even though I'd done the visioning of the sleeping in the dream house, when it came to looking for the house, I kind of was looking like, I've got to find something. And I found this house that ticked all the boxes, and I put an offer in, and the offer got accepted, and things were beginning to move forward. And all of a sudden I was just like, I don't know, I'm not sure if this is right. I wasn't quite feeling that it was right. And so I was at my friend's house, and somebody had made a comment on one of my videos, and they said, what do you do when you procrastinate on doing the work? And I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm procrastinating on doing my own work. So I sat down, I got my notebook out, and I wrote down, like, I put myself in my dream house and I wrote down what I'm seeing. So I'm seeing high ceilings, I'm seeing big walls to put my art on, I'm seeing ocean, I'm seeing the ocean, I'm seeing a beautiful garden, I'm seeing, like, I just wrote it all down. I wrote a list. And then I woke up the next morning suddenly obsessed with this house that I hadn't seen, but I'd seen the photos of, and I was like, I have to see that house. And I contacted the real estate agent. I said, I really have to see this house. Is there any way you could get me in? She said, yes. So I got in that morning, saw the house, which is the house I'm in. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. And I knew walking down the driveway that this was it before I'd even seen the house. And I walked in, and it was just like bang, bang, like just, I just saw my art on the walls. And
was it so much better than the other one that you'd put an offer in? Like in what was the
every way? Oh my God.
In every way.
And that was where I realized it is really important to sit down and write out the list of what the qualities of what you want to have and experience. And even if I hadn't have got this house, I knew that the other one wasn't right. So I had to make a difficult phone call and say, look, I'm really, really sorry, but I am going to have to back out. No contracts had been signed. So I was very apologetic, but I had to do what I had to do. And then I just worked on putting the offer on in this one. But it just highlighted that I I was kind of acting from anxiety when I was looking, like I was like, I've got to find something, got to find something. But then I just stopped and I was like, well, hang on a second. What is it that I truly desire having? Like, what's the kind of house that I can really envision myself in? And it wasn't that house.
Yeah.
And that list, and I slept on it that night, and then everything just sort of folded perfectly the next day. And then here we are.
Yeah. Wow, what
really
a fork
important.
in the road, because you were heading down a path already. You were already.
And I drive past that house, you know, because it's not far from where I am, and I go, oh, thank God, thank God, thank God.
Yeah.
It was so close, so close.
Isn't it good you do that rather than you'd bought that house and then you were looking at this one going, oh, I wish I'd waited. I wish I'd got that one.
Oh my God. And I still get online because I have a little bit of a real estate thing where I'm like just curious. So I still get online a bit tentatively, like scared that I'm going to see something. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so glad.
This is the one.
This is it. Like, yeah, there's beautiful houses out there, but this was mine. This was
for you. Yeah.
It had everything that I asked for. And what's been interesting is that since I've come into this house, which I love, because I'm practicing law of assumption every day, I'm also like, well, okay, we can expand this even more. So what else would I like now? Like, this doesn't have to be it. This is like a step in the constant expansion into what I want to experience. And I realized, because this house is on a hill, but it's on like sort of near the top. And there's this feeling of like, oh, you know what? My next house, I want to be on top of the hill, like, and have the sort of full views and the breeze. And so it's been interesting to see, oh, okay, cool. And now what? Like, and what's next? Like that allowing myself to desire even more, because I feel like there's a little bit of like, it's not okay to want what you want or to desire more. Like, you should be grateful for what you have, which I am.
Yes. Yeah.
But why not? Like, we're here to have an experience. So
that's it. Yeah.
What else could I experience? So that's been kind of fun.
I love how well, it's like, you know, like you said, oh, I didn't win the house, but it's like that was the way in. It was the way in. That perked your interest, and then it opened up the desires, and then it opened up the focus and the discipline. And then the house came in a way that you weren't really looking for. But I love that when it just finds you anyway.
It did. And I think what was interesting with that was, because when I didn't win it, the day where they announced the winner, oh, I was gutted. I was so disappointed, because I was like, oh, I've done all this work. And what it did was it kind of cut the attachment. So at that point, I just stopped I let everything go. Yeah. And I just like, okay, fine, that's it. Okay, move on. Let's just, we'll, you know, whatever. And I kind of forgot about the whole thing. And then I spoke to my property manager like a month later, but I wasn't, that whole thing, the house had kind of, I'd let it go. And I think that sense of just non-attach, or that detaching from the desire, I was no longer holding on to it, I think enabled it all to just move so easily, because I was no longer holding on to, I've got to have this house, but that attachment loosened off when I didn't win it, which I actually think worked in my favor, because I was no longer holding on to it.
That's it. Letting go and surrendering is such a big part of this, isn't it?
That is, and it's a tricky one, because you can't really let go of what it is that you really want. You know, like even though I didn't win it, I still wanted my dream home, but I had just let go of the like the way, the form of the house. So that exact house I'd let go of, which was perfect, because then it enabled this house to come in. So that it was helpful.
Oh, it's so great. I will put down below some links to Law of Assumption, and also the Dream Home playlist, because I have got that. And also, you and I work in the same field, and you actually coach people as well. Yes. So I'm going to put all of Hedley's links down below for everyone that's watching this and wants to. She is on YouTube. She has got a website, so you can find her. But can you tell us a little bit about your coaching with Law of Assumption?
Yeah, so I just love law of assumption like you, and I know you do other things as well. I I think I've just kind of just stuck with law of assumption, even though it all it all resonates and it's
Yeah.
all part of it and it's all sort of and so I have been doing that for the last year because I started my channel about a year ago, and I started it just because I was like, oh, I love this law of assumption thing. I'm just going to make a video and just like I'm just gonna I don't know, just throw it out there. And then I just love doing that as well. And so glad to have met and connected with you as well. You were like one of my inspirations, and I just love your authenticity and just your naturalness and just obviously the Australian accent.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, I've just been doing that, and that's just been a very organic progression as well. But it's just something I'm just super passionate about and using and applying in my own life. So I only ever talk about things that I that resonate for me and that I'm putting into practice myself, because I'm working on this, like, and there are areas where I'm still working on manifesting things like in relationship, but so it's a constant work in progress. But I feel like with my home, that was 100% law of assumption. And I just got to see how easy it was, just how easy. And when you take your hands off and let things like organize themselves, on it, it's actually, it's the law of least effort, which Neville talks about. Like you're showing up, you're still taking action, but you're showing up to the action. You're not making the action happen. It's like, it's coming to you, and you're like, oh, great, I've got to call this person.
So like you with the house, you've put the deposit on, and then all of a sudden you go, hang on a minute. I need to just sit for a bit, go to sleep, and then you wake up and it's like, whoa, something's just shifted, and I'm going, I need to go check this out. That's the inspired action that we hear about. That's where the golden nuggets are.
Yeah. And I just experienced that all the way through with this one. So I just know how powerful it is, and I just love it so much. So that's just what I like to talk about most of the day. So
now someone put no worries, and I will put all that down below for everyone.
Thank you.
Because we're in Australia today, I thought I get you to answer this question.
Love it. Yes.
I actually did a little video when I was in the Blue Mountains walking in the national park yesterday, and someone said in a comment, I have heard that kangaroos beat each other and they're really aggressive. Is that true? So I'm going to hand that one over to you.
Well, I have heard... I actually because we holiday up at Southwest Rocks, or down at Southwest Rocks, and I was just down there recently, and there's like kangaroo, or they're wallabies, but they're everywhere, and they go for each other, and they stand up on their on their heels or something, and they flex their muscles, and it looks like these kangaroos are on steroids or something. Like that's part of the whole thing. And I went up to one. I was like testing it a little bit, and then I'd heard you should never ever go up to a kangaroo or a wallaby and do that, because they look cute, but they can be very aggressive. So I was just I started backing off, because they can definitely go for you. And they do go for each other as well.
They go for each other as well. Yes. And for those that are watching this that don't know what a wallaby is, it looks pretty much exactly like a kangaroo, but it's smaller usually.
I don't really understand the difference, but anyway. I don't get it.
Yeah. And we're from here and we don't understand. I don't get it either. But there we go. A bit of Australiana for people that are not from here. And I am honestly so thrilled hearing that story. It's a wonderful, wonderful manifestation. And it just goes to show, like you said, there's lots of other laws. There's lots of Neville and different people to learn from and all of that. But law of assumption, just purely on its own, is a powerful tool. Powerful.
Yeah.
And I think it was the law that Neville, after reading Neville for 30 plus years, I think it's the law he talks about the most.
Yes.
Hands down.
Definitely. I mean, he does talk about some of the others. I mean, the law of least effort, I know he writes about in one, but I think that I have just found that when I change an assumption about something, that something changes in my reality. And it might take a little bit of time, but I've just had so much experience with it now. So I'm just like, well, wow, I'm just going to change my assumption on everything.
That's it. That's it. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly right.
Yeah. So it's been very helpful.
Oh, well, thank you. That was
Thank
so
you.
wonderful. And
Thank you for having me.
thank you for giving your time. And for anyone that wants to contact Hedley, look down below in the description. And I will also pop in between both our heads a click on link for Hedley so you can go straight to her YouTube channel.
And thank you, Agnes. You're so generous and you're so warm and you give so much, and your channel is amazing, and you've been doing this for so long, and you're just so consistent and so inspiring. And I think that consistency is inspiring in itself. So you know what I mean? Like that. So thank you for all the work that you have done and all the inspiration that you have given so many people, and myself included. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, it's definitely a long game. You realize
it sure is.
It's a marathon. It's not the 100-meter sprint.
No, yeah.
Oh, good stuff. Well, do you want to say goodbye? I'll say goodbye and then we'll say bye in private.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you. Yes, thank you again. And I'll see you soon.
Sounds good. Bye, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this. Get inspired. Use your law of assumption. Get yourself a beautiful house.
Yes.
Through
Yes.
the law of least effort.
Yes. Yeah. I highly recommend it.
Bye, everybody. See you in the next YouTube.
Bye.